And here we are. Amazing. Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Julien, the happy managing director at Fledge. Fledge is a boutique search firm connecting exceptional talent with what I like to call the most innovative companies. In this channel, we actually aim to give a pragmatic talent acquisition solution to support tech leaders and early stage founders that are hiring. And today, we are welcoming two software development experts in test automation, but also experts in interviewing and hiring other software developers. Guys, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
Hello.
us.
Thank you for
Hello,
inviting
guys.
us.
Yeah, definitely. Do you maybe want to give a brief introduction? Jean, maybe you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jean. I'm French. I live in Germany for a while. I work at Dataiku as a software engineering test for a bit over 3 years. Before that, I worked at Dolby in the audio broadcast industry, always as a software engineering test. So that's the only thing I've done in my life so far.
And we have Bashar then.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Syria and moved to France 3 years ago to do my master's. Then I did my end of studies internship at Dataiku, so I'm Jean's colleague. And since then, I've been working at Dataiku, so for 2 years and a half as an SDET.
Amazing. And so, Bashar, how do you define SDET, software development in test? What does that mean for someone who's not working in the field?
Yeah, so it's a bit tricky and funny at the same time because, software developer, it's somehow known, front end, back end. But when I tell people the test part, it's always confusing. And I have many people who told me that they are still testing you, like you're still in probation period. I'm like, no, that's not what the test means. So how I explain it is similar that you have the front end, they do features for the UI for the front end of the product, the back end similar for the back end. When you're SDET, you do features for the test, so to enable the testing of the product, to run the test on a daily basis, to make it more efficient, etc. Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Jean, do you have like anything to add, or do you see it the same?
Yeah, I see it the same. I think it just follows like historically, like before there was a like waterfall approach with more of a split between QA and software engineers and not really talking to each other and having really different roles. And I think now it's just it tends to, the trend is like to merge these, that everyone doing software development or everyone doing working on software works together. And I think that's why we started already a few years ago to have software or SDET roles, basically. Yeah.
Makes sense. And so it's part of the same department, the software development department in most companies, but you would have separate, let's say, specialties. And this separate specialty means also a separate interview process. You are both part of the interview process. What will be the number one thing that you look at hiring software development in test engineers?
I think maybe I can go. I think for us at Dataiku, it's mostly autonomy and independence. People who will, but I think it's like maybe the overall approach in R&D, like of people who are able to know what they should do by themselves and not and people who don't require high management overhead, and to whom you need to tell, do this, do that. But I think it takes another. It's important for the software engineering test role because a lot of testing people come from a manual background where
Yeah.
they are used to being told with a very clear, very detailed description what they have to test and how they have to test it. And I think that makes it difficult to that's why it's difficult to. That's where the difficulty lies in hiring software engineering tests, I would say.
Yes, exactly. So the big differentiation between the manual testing and the automation testing, and that's maybe something I forgot to mention at the beginning of this recording, but you are specialized in automation testing. So everything is 100% automated here.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Bashar, anything to add on this?
Actually, I do agree with Jean about the fact that some of the people who apply for such roles can have more of a manual QA role. So I would say the first thing or the main thing you need to focus on is that they actually have development skills, that they are aware that this is an SDET role, and you need to code a lot. You need to be involved in a lot of technical stuff. So that would be really important to focus on.
Fair enough.
And it's not. Sorry, it's not to say that the manual role is not worthy of it. It's just like, I think it's part of a company strategy to decide whether they want to have autonomous software engineering tests or more managed manual testers. Both approaches can make sense depending on the company's product and everything. So it's not. But I think for sure it's something that has to be defined clearly, so that the hiring process goes smoothly. Otherwise, you don't get what you want. So
fair enough. So once this decision has been made and a focus is on the automation part, what would be for you the three key aspects when evaluating actually a good software developer in test automation?
I think so. Like basically, when you work as a software engineer in test, your customers will be to some extent the developers. So I think we need to keep that focus and think about how are we making developers' life easier. How do we provide them with confidence? How do we? And I think that focus on solving developers' problems and not being isolated and just doing your things on your side, I think that's an important thing. That's not three top things, but that's at least one. So I let Bashar go with number two, maybe.
Yeah, good luck finding three things. No, I mean I agree with Jean. It is about working with the whole R&D team, and you will be an equal peer of the developers. You will have to, listen to their opinions. You will be able to discuss with them about all this stuff. So one very important aspect is to be able to communicate everything you want. Second and third. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, perfect. But you're listing a lot of soft skills essentially and experience. So that requires indeed communication, experience, and proactivity. I would say. You're not mentioning any technical skills.
I mean, maybe then it's also a good third one. It's like, of course, we put all the soft skills like in the front, but then you have to be fit on the tech side as well. So I think it's not, and I think here we're not necessarily looking for very specific technologies, but just like basic stuff, which is hard to define. It's very hard to define what is basic, because something can be very basic for me but not for you. And but I think like just experience with development, being used to writing code every day, for instance, that's really like a thing I would say is very critical. So
they have to be strong software developer. That's the number one thing, and then you add everything else you just mentioned on top of that, essentially.
Like they don't have to know the same, to work with the same programming language that we work with, the same tools. Sometimes you have on the job description that, okay, we work with this language, with this tool, but it's not only about that. We have a lot of candidates that work with Java, not with Python, and it's totally okay as long as you are willing to learn. But it is important to have programming background, as Jean said, like coding on a regular basis and being comfortable with that, because that's a big part of what you will be doing.
Makes sense. And yeah, thank you. On the other hand, what would you potentially say? What do you believe that those software development candidates are actually looking before choosing a company? Is there like some thing that you would find particularly attractive into a company? You being a software developer in test?
I would say, yeah, and it depends on also on your background. Like if you are an SDET who's really technical, so I'm more into the development side and not the testing strategy, because it's a mix. Every SDET has a mix of these two. So sometimes one is more than the other. So when I look on a job description, I really try to focus on, is it more development or is it more testing or is it a good balance between both? So I think for hiring managers, it's really important to write, to be very explicit that this is what you're gonna do. This is gonna be exactly very development or testing development. So I focus on that when I read job descriptions and when I think maybe I will apply to any of them.
I think
Jean, would you agree?
yeah,
Okay.
I could add that maybe for me, not something I'm looking for positively, but something I'm looking for negatively would be if testing is a gatekeeper, so basic or a bottleneck or anything which like if it's a bottleneck, for instance, that would be like a no-go for me, in the sense that there are always less software engineering tests than software engineers working on the product actively. And if your responsibility is to say, we guarantee you that the product is working as expected, then it puts you in an uncomfortable position of having to say stuff you cannot really guarantee in the first place. And it means you're directly, like, you're a point of pressure in the organization. So on the contrary, if the role is more about like there are many companies nowadays which have like a developer advocacy role but that's like an outside facing role, where you say, how is our product perceived by developers in other, like, outside of the company. And I think if QA is more like an internal dev advocacy team, then that's a better sign for me. So again, coming back to what we said earlier, like if it's more about helping the developers feel confident, there's a big difference between helping developers feel confident and guaranteeing and being on the path to the release, and guaranteeing that a piece of software doesn't have problems. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I also agree with Jean about this, and it's also like something I would look in a company would be to not be very stressful when it comes to testing, because some companies you need to test everything. We need to have like 100% test coverage. We have this new feature, guys, run, go, test it. And in my company, in general, the companies I look in, it's more flexible, focus on the quality of the test you are writing, focus on, as Jean said, like make it easier for the developers, help them to write tests and not be panicking that, okay, there is a new feature, go test it quickly. This creates a lot of stressful environment that I wouldn't personally want to be in.
That's very interesting. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's something that we can advise founders and hiring managers to showcase on their career page.
Yeah.
So showcase online, showcase on their job description. 100%. Yes. Thanks for sharing that.
And just like to add a small thing, I think so, and also, like, I think there are still different ways to do. Even if so there are some industries which require absolutely that you, I don't know, like for airlines, or like for airplanes, you have to guarantee that of course, you have different levels of that you need to satisfy. So and this makes sense, but even with that, you can still have different approaches and say, we need to guarantee a high level or like a low level of defects, but we will share that burden over the whole company with different ways, or to say we will put like a QA team completely separated from the rest, which will I don't know, there are many different ways to organize a company. So, and I would still prefer even if you have to guarantee a very high level of functions, like I would still go for the first company which shares that burden over the whole team. So yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. And your job or this specificity has been quite evolving. And anyways, the whole tech landscape is constantly evolving. But what do you see is emerging within software development in test? Any new specific tool, the impact of artificial intelligence, or what is something that strikes you recently?
I mean, yeah, I would say it's all the AI and the LLM stuff, and everyone thinking how this will be part of our job in the future. Well, now, and for example, LLM, let's say, call it ChatGPT because that's how it's the most famous one. I use it every day, and I feel like in a candidate, I would like him to say it like, okay, I use ChatGPT, it's okay, and it is a big part of what we do now and what we will do. There's like this nice sentence that it keep popping up on my socials that says like, AI will not take your work, take your job, but someone who uses AI will take your job. So it is part of our daily life now, and you just should use it and live with it.
Fair enough. Jean, anything adding on this?
I don't know. Yeah, for me it's like less. It's not so clear. I would say maybe large language models would allow us to focus on, maybe if you can ask ChatGPT to write you unit tests for a function and it makes an okay job at doing that, it frees you time to think about the overall quality of your product, for instance. So like typically that could be the kind of thing. I'm not sure I see it in action, to be honest. Um, of course, I also use it, but I'm also not sure. It's that transformative for me personally at the moment. Not yet. So yeah.
Or no.
Wait.
Yeah,
I mean, basically, it's like the kind of thing I used to. Of course, it changes a bit the experience, but the kind of thing 5 years ago, the kind of thing that I had to go look up on Stack Overflow in 2 or 3 questions and assemble those answers in the answer I needed, I can make now with a few requests to ChatGPT. But again, like it's not a huge saving of time, and it's not and the answer is like more or less the same. So yeah.
Yeah, at the end is not the tool, but who controls the tool. So it's not gonna turn you into a great software developer test. You have to have this experience first to use those tools wisely. Okay, but then maybe stupid question, but there won't be artificial intelligence testing on your behalf the software. Like you're still the one doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
But
For
we
now,
could, I think
yes.
it can be for sure. It's not so. You could for sure you could ask you could instrument ChatGPT in saying, here are the points you can hit to test my system, and just behave like a user and test my system. But again, I'm not sure to turn that into meaningful value, into deterministic cases, being sure that what is tested is, I don't like, I wouldn't feel super comfort. Maybe as an optional additional thing, why not? But I wouldn't feel super comfortable just telling, here is my product, just test it, and
Yeah.
without having any control over it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Because a big part of our job is not just, testing the product, but it's also interpreting the results, debugging the failures, knowing who to contact, knowing how serious is this bug, knowing do we need to do an action now or it's okay, it can wait. And it's like a lot more than, as Jean said, you just give it a couple of steps, they can do it. Probably they can in the future. They will be more and more able to do that. But it is more than just, write the test and run them.
Interesting. And so we've covered a lot already, just in a few minutes. And I see that, again, technology constantly evolving and shaping your role. It's interesting that you've mentioned and you keep mentioning the importance of communication, the importance of again productivity, organization. It's really a specific role within software engineering. Maybe a curiosity to slowly close this podcast, but what dragged you into this specificity personally? Why not maybe another aspect of software development?
So I at least for me, I didn't choose explicitly. It was just I got on that path because that's what I did after, after my studies. My very first manager had that sentence, or like had that question, like, as a kid, did you prefer to build stuff or to destroy stuff? If you prefer to build stuff, maybe you would you would be more on the developer, like normal developer, early stage of design, let's say. And if you
Yeah,
liked to break stuff when you were a kid, maybe you were a good tester because then you like to take a thing and mount it and stuff like this. So um, I think I liked both to create and destroy stuff when I was a kid, but
yeah,
but yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting. It's a bit like a special hat to wear. It's like, yeah, it's funny to do that job, I find. So
yeah.
Yeah,
Bashar,
I
what do you
also
think? Yeah.
ended up as Jean, like, okay, I ended up with SDET because after my master, the first internship that I found was in SDET as an SDET in Dataiku. And I wouldn't lie, through these 3 years, probably Jean knows, like I got some questions if I want to continue as SDET or I want to move into front end, back end, pure software development. And eventually I discovered that I like it because once you realize that you are actually doing a lot of software development and it is the same, but it's just different field. It's not front end, it's not back end, it's testing.
Yeah.
You realize that it's actually really nice. And what I love about it is because you test, then you deal with all the fields. Like I test front end, I test back end, I test things related to machine learning, things related to data science. So it is really wide and a lot of things to do and a lot of things to learn. So I mean, I'm loving it working with everything.
I think maybe also just one thing is that companies are traditionally understaffed for the testing part because they prefer to invest more on dev side, and it means you have a lot more work, but it's actually nice. I mean, if you like,
Yeah.
you have a lot more different small directions you can explore, and then you can do a bit of this, a bit of that. Whereas I think if you like in a more traditional software engineering role, you have to work 2 months on one feature to build it and
Yeah,
ship
it's
it,
more
and it has
dynamic.
to so it has to work and it has to be delivered at the end of the day. So yeah. And also another thing is, I think uh, like I chose like I think there in software engineering many people don't actually really choose purposefully what they do. If you ask other people, like if you ask other software engineers, how did they choose the language in which they work, or how did they choose the industry in which they work? it's also often by your first job. I don't know, maybe you have a first job in C++ in embedded systems, and then you end up doing C++ in embedded systems your whole life because that's what you're good at. And or maybe you start as a web engineer or like iOS developer. I think iOS developers, they never switch to something else because it's such a specific thing. So then
it's true.
And you don't have to. I think most of these people didn't think I will be an iOS developer. It's just they got at some point on the path.
Yeah. Again, all the love for all the fields, for front end, back end, manual. Everyone is, everyone's good. Everyone's doing their job. So, yeah.
But perfect, Bashar. I think you closed this recording very well. All the love all the love for every aspect of the software development. Thank you so much for today. We might see you again because it was very explicit and it was very comprehensive. So thanks again for your time and your answers. And for everyone amazing. For everyone who is watching, feel free to indeed drop a comment, mention them because they will probably see the comments. So if you want to see them again, feel free to mention it, and we'll definitely invite Jean and Bashar over again. Thanks so much, and yes, cheers, bye bye.
Bye bye. Have a nice day.